Before we start, Noortje had and I had a proposal to do because we're getting into the phase where grammar is important. We would like to suggest to do some grammar study together, grammar,
Hmm.
um, and then on the Tuesday start a little bit early, say like 7:30, and then we do first a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes basic grammar, and then at 8 o'clock we start with the Hebrew. So if you want to participate in that and would like to join, let us know that we can do every week 20 minutes of grammar specified in basic stuff. And because in today's videos, there's also a short video about grammar because most of us have had grammar in the last time we were in high school or something like that, or maybe earlier. Yeah, and I don't know all the technical terms, and it's very deep down inside. But um, when reading it, oh yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, but learning grammar now is a good step to go into the next chapters of the Hebrew because a lot of things we are learning now have to do with the aspects of grammar about and in Dutch a lot of things have been simplified because we don't use naamvallen anymore or not particularly naamvallen. I don't know what it is in English, but we have all these vervoegingen en verbuigingen. They are natural to us, but in Hebrew we must learn them. So we must understand: is this female? Is it male? Is it third form or second? Or is it singular? Or is it plural? So these are the six basic forms, and then you have all these kind of rules. I also have available for anyone who wants this. Um, this is an oversight map from Hebrew. I've got one. I somebody gave it to me, but I already have one. So if you want to have this, it's a very simple overview in from all the Hebrew language, like the consonants, etc. Everything. This is just a map with all the verbs and how it works. I've seen your hand. Yes. And who is offering two hands? Can I see three hands? Yes. Okay. Anki, it's yours.
Kan je die anders inscannen of is dat te groot?
No, it's not too big. I can scan it in, but it's from Zondervan. It's available on Amazon. That's where I got my copy, but I can make a copy, but it's always copyrighted, you know. I think it's copyrighted. Yeah, it's copyrighted. So scanning is not a problem, distributing is. Yeah. Okay, just a small recap. Last week we talked about the Shua, and the Shua had. Let's go back to my paper. Sorry, I thought I had that. Alrighty, where is my whiteboard? Hooray! Here's my whiteboard. Come up. There we go. The Shua. Let's pick a nice color. Just a short recap of last week. The Shua. We have a vocal Shua and a silent Shua. the vocal schwa is always at the beginning of a syllable. So when you have a word and you have the beginning of the word, and here's a syllable marker, at the beginning of the syllable, so also at the beginning of a word, the schwa is vocal, and it's written in transliterated, something like this, like let's say a bait with a schwa is transliterated as a bait with an elevated E. Sometimes in Bible Hub, you see it the other way around. You see it like this. I don't know how to do it correctly, but it's an E like this, B. And it's a very short E, like in the word begin or beginnen, B, very short. So not van beren of bait, but B, very short E. So at the beginning of a syllable, and this one, the silent schwa, is at the end of a syllable of lettergreep. So when we have a syllable, this is CV, then it's at the end, or CVC, or 3, then it could be here, at the end of a syllable marker. The second rule, after a long vowel. And we know long vowels, they have two kinds. You have the normal long vowels that are transliterated like this. And you have the historically long. And they are transliterated like this. And these are carried by an he or a vav or a yud, and sometimes an aleph. So the historically long vowels are carried by another consonant, and the normal long vowels are beneath the word. So when we have long vowels, so then the short and the extreme short do not, when they have a schwa, it's not vocal. So only after long, oh, wait a minute. Where's my wiper? My eraser. Long. After long vowel. And there is one remark, it's unstressed. So there is no accent. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about stressed and unstressed. But now we keep it to the schwas. So the silent schwa is after a short vowel. And these are the normal A, E, I, O, U. And for the patach, there's the goal, Girek, the Gataf, and the U. So these are the short vowels. And the last rule, when it's the second of two schwas, it's vocal. So when we have two schwas in a row, this one is vocal. Basic rule. And it also means that when we have two schwas, that in most of the cases, there is a change of syllables. And that complies with this rule up here. Where is it? Different color. This one is at the end of a syllable because there are other letters in front, and this one is at the beginning of a syllable. So it's correct. When two schwas are there, one is at the end of a syllable, the other is at the beginning of the next syllable. So rule number one, at the beginning of a syllable, so this one, this is vocal, and this is about rule number two, it's at the end, so it's silent. And of course, very simple, this is the first of two schwas. If you understand this first basic rule, at the end and the beginning, when we understand that one, then the rest is almost self-explanatory. There are some exceptions, but these are the basic rules. Let's put save. And let's have a look here. Chapter. Oh, why can I see that? Let's see if I can find an example of this. When you have to look for them, it's always difficult. I have some examples here. New share. Go to this one. Can you see the text? I think so, yes. Here we see, oh, sorry. Where's my annotation? Help. I need to stop share. Why can't I? Sorry, guys. Where's my annotation marker? Now I feel like Dr. O. Where is it? Ronald, help. Oh my, Ronald is here. I can't see my annotation marker anymore. Ah, that's strange. I can't sign anymore. I don't know what's going on. Stop share. Share screen, go to whiteboard. There it is. So if I do new share, it's gone. I cannot annotate. This is strange. Well, I have to do it like this. You see here a schwa at the beginning of a word, and you see how it's spelled over here. It's an upside down E. So it's not elevated, but it's upside down. So you know it's at the beginning of a word, and it's vocal. Here you have the same. This seems, when in tigeu, it seems like it's at the end of the first syllable, but then you have to notice that there is a small dot inside the gimel, and that means that it's tigenu, and therefore it's vocal because the next syllable starts with the gimel, the second gimel. There are two gimels here. Only one is written, but the dot inside it is used to double the gimel. That's why you have that. Here again, Timotun is again. I'm still frustrated that I can't see my annotation tool. That's strange. I can't pay it anymore. Okay, so we stop share. Okay, this was the reminder of last session. We have go out of the way. We have two shiras, a silent one and a vocal one. When it's vocal is at the beginning of a syllable, after a long vowel, or the second one of two shiras. It is silent at the end of a syllable, after a short vowel, and the first of two shiras. And it all comes down to the basic rule here, because most of the times short vowels are at the end of a syllable. Therefore, it is silent. Long vowels are at the beginning. Therefore, it's vocal. It's not as difficult. The two other rules are embedded in the first one. So if you remember the first one, when you read a Hebrew text and you see two shiras, the first one is silent, the second one is vocal. If you see one shara at the beginning of a word, it's vocal. Yes. Haha. Now let's go to another lesson from our friend, and it's called the compound shara. And maybe you remember, then let's first do the whiteboard so you understand what the compound shara is. The compound shara is when you have the vocal chart, maybe you remember this. You had all these lines and these columns. You had A, E, I, O, U. Then this last one, this was short, this was long, this was historical long, and the other ones, this was compound shara. And how do you write them? Well, for the A vowel, it's like this. So that's a patach with the two dots. For the E vowel, it's a segol. For the I vowel, it's just the double dots. And for the O vowel, it's like this. So this is for an A sound, an E sound, an I sound, an O sound, and the U sound, as you remember, doesn't have a compound schwa. And note, this is not a kametz because it's an O sound. And the names will come in the lesson. And this is what we call, this one is a simple shua. So when I study Hebrew, there are a few lists I always have ready because I'm still learning it. That is the list of the letters. You know, the table we made in the beginning, like the Hebrew letter, the numerical value, the way it's written, the pronunciation, etc. This table that we made in the beginning, I always keep it next to me. And the second one I keep next to me is the vocal chart. And the vocal chart is this chart over here, this one, vocal chart. So these two things are very handy when you are learning Hebrew. The list or the table of the letters, how you write them, how you pronounce them, because it's still very difficult to make a distinction between all these S's. You know, you have an S like this, and 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 you have the H like this, and you have the H like this. Now, you know, all these different letters, and you have a T like this, and a T like that, and a T like that. So that's why the list of letters is so handy while you study or make your homework. You need to learn it. It takes time. And it's not a shame to keep these lists available next to your material when you study. Okay? So now let's go to the compound Shava. Here we go.
The compound Shava. Actually, we've already seen these. These are the half vowels or the reduced vowels that we encountered in our introduction to vowels in our vowel chart. If you remember, we had at the very bottom of the chart, we had a series of vowels. One looked like this, and then we had one like this. Then we had actually our Shava that we've been doing so much with. And then we had one like this. And then for the U vowels, there wasn't anything. Remember, this is our A vowels, E vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. Now this is our Shava. This is not a compound Shava. This is the simple Shava. These are the compound Shavas, these three. And they're called the Chataf Patach, Chataf Sagol, Chataf Kametz. And Chataf just means hurried. And that's they call them that because the way you pronounce this is like a hurried Patach. So it's A, this is E, a hurried Sagol, and this is A, a hurried Kametz Hatuf. This is a short O. Now, in terms of transliteration, we already looked at this, but it's got a brev or a breve over it like this, an and this is like this. This one is a raised, there's some room here, a raised It's pretty hard to see, isn't it? A raised E. These can also be superscripted sometimes in some texts. So, these are a compound Shavas. Sometimes they're called composite Shavas because they're a composite of the corresponding short vowel and the Shava. So composite Shavas are compound Shavas. Okay, now where do these things show up? They largely show up with the gutturals. Okay, and the gutturals, if you remember from our guttural module, we have four of them. We have Aleph, Ayin, Chet, and Hey. And the reason they show up with these is because these, especially these pronounceable ones here, are pronounced near the back of the throat, and these, I guess, are easier to pronounce near the back of the mouth to match these consonants. It's a phonetic reason anyway as to why the compound Shavas appear with the gutturals. The gutturals will not take a simple vocal Shava. Now, by that I mean the vocal Shava that is a vowel. Okay, we're talking about the vowel one now, not the silent one. The one that is silent, remember we have the two, the silent Shava is really a syllable marker, and it can show up, though it's rare, it can show up with gutturals. But what I'm really talking about here are these, the vocal Shava. Instead of the vocal simple Shava, this is called simple in contrast to compound, you will get these compound Shavas. Now let's look at an example. A good way to look at this is, let's take a verb, shavar. This means to break. Okay, simple verb to break. If I put this in the imperative or a command form to tell someone break something, it is shavor. This is the standard way to take a verb. He broke becomes break. Now let us change this verb. There happens to be another verb that's identical to this, only it's got a guttural in the first position. So let's do that one. It's avar. Avar means to pass or to cross over or to pass through. When the Israelites passed through the Jordan or through the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, it's this that they do. It's this verb. And you can see here everything's identical. The only thing different is that we have a guttural here. All the letters are the same, including the vowels. Now, when I put this in the imperative form, this vowel is the same, just like that, shavor, but instead of ivor, we have avor. The guttural cannot take a vocal shava. Remember, this is vocal at the beginning of a word, beginning of a syllable. It's not a silent shava. The guttural can't take that, so it has a compound shava, a composite shava. Note also that the one it takes corresponds to its family. This is an A vowel, the kametz, and this is the chataf patach that corresponds to the A vowel in the first column. It does not take this one because this is really the short O, remember? We'll talk about this later when we'll talk about the distinction between the two vowels that use the same symbol, the kametz and the kametz hatuf later. But this here is the short O. This is the short A, or the half A and the half short O. Now, gutturals, or not gutturals, but composite shavas or compound shavas can also show up with other consonants sometimes, particularly resh. You'll see it sometimes with resh. An example of that, just a quick example here. Make sure I spell this right. Barachu. This means to bless. It's also an imperative, a command. This was singular, this is plural. So you would use this if you're telling a group of people to bless. It shows up in Psalm 134, verse 2. Bless the Lord. Telling people to bless the Lord. So here we have a resh and we have a composite shava showing up under there as well. So in summary here, really what we're saying is that gutturals are the ones that tend to take these composite shavas instead of the simple vocal shava. And they will take one that corresponds to a vowel, generally anyway, a vowel in its family. So A vowels will take this, and O vowels will take this, and E vowels will take, I and E vowels will tend to take this. But it'll be a composite shava in any case.
Unmute. So some examples of other words. Let's have a look. On the whiteboard. Let's have some examples. Oh, this is much too big because I need space. Anybody idea what the word is?
Adama.
Yep, very good. So how do we transliterate it? Like this. I forget this one. The dalet, and it's a soft dalet. This is a kametz, so that's a long. We've got a mem, another kametz, and a hey. So we have, and now just that has nothing to do with Hebrew, with the strictly Hebrew, but it's interesting to see, of course, that in it is the word Adam, which means man, and this means the color ground or soil, grond, de aarde. And it's also interesting that in the word Adam is the word dam, which means blood. So now you see, when you go that way, that the ground has a connection with man and has a connection with blood.
Yeah.
And that is why when Cain slew his brother, the earth opened up its mouth to receive the blood. And the voice of Abel was coming from the earth, from the ground. Okay, that's just, I find that stuff interesting, as you know. Another word, let's look. You know, the Aleph is a guttural, doesn't take a schwa, but does take a compound schwa. Any idea what word is coming to be? Elohim, yes. Again. Oh, don't forget the Aleph. Eh? Lo. Him, which means God. Interesting to note, this is a plural. So in essence, the name of God is always something plural.
Yeah.
But here again, at the, you see it over here, the compound schwa. That means that when you pronounce it, you don't say Elohim or Elohim, it's eh. It's a very short E, Elohim. Well, these are two examples. There are more examples, of course, but the point is that the compound schwa is found when you read the text, is often found at the beginning of a word beneath a guttural. So you remember the gutturals. These are the things that we learned in the beginning. Maybe you start to understand. Plus resh. In the beginning, we learned the gutturals and resh. So there is a reason why you had to learn the gutturals, because there are specific rules concerning the use of gutturals and all these little vowels that go underneath it or not. Are there any questions at this point for the compound schwa, the very shortened, the hurried vowel? So it is a vowel, but it's shortened. It's very short. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Then we go to the next video. That was 6. We go to 7. This lesson is called Inseparable Prepositions.
Inseparable prepositions. Most prepositions in Hebrew function much like they do in English, as individual words that link to nouns or pronouns, and then modify some other words. There are, however, three prepositions in Hebrew that cannot stand alone as words, and they attach directly to their object. And they are b and k and le. And they mean, be means in or with or by. Ke means like or as. Oh, I can spell this right. Like as, according to, something like that. And le means to, toward. To, toward, or for. Now, these are extremely common, and you need to be able to recognize them when they're attached to their noun or their pronoun or other noun-like words. At first you may think that it's part of the word, and then you don't know what the word is, but you have to expect these things. Now, the way they attach, at least to simple words, words that we'll cover this more when you get further on, but a word like melech, meaning king, okay, that's the word, it stands by itself, melech. If you want to put one of these prepositions on it, let's put b on there, it would just go right on the front with a vocal shava. So there's no changes to either part, it just attaches directly. And that would mean by the king, a decree by the king perhaps, or with the king. Likewise le or ke, so to the king or as the king. They're called inseparable because they can't stand by themselves, and they attach directly to their object.
Oh, I'm back. I had to write something down. Sorry. Okay. There are some exercises here. Oh, take my pencil. Go to the whiteboard. So in English, inseparable prepositions. And in Dutch, that means nothing more than onafscheidelijk voorzetsel. Oh. Voorzetsel is in, bij, door, uit. So these are parts of words in a sentence that in Dutch are before the noun, voor het zelfstandig naamwoord. Sometimes it's a combination. A Dutch combination is, for instance, uitgaan. And you see that the preposition going out in English are two words. But in Dutch, it's one word. That means that the preposition is connected to the verb or the noun. So inseparable means in Hebrew that for the combination, well, make it correct, the beit and the kaf and the lamet are all directly connected to the following word. Just connected. They can't stand on their own. They need to be connected to the word that follows. So in English you have going out, but in Dutch it's uitgaan. But because we in Dutch we put all these words together. Uitgaansgelegenheid. But in English, it doesn't. It's all separate words. Yeah, going out opportunity. That I'm going out opportunity. No, you can't say that. So these are connected to the noun or the verb that follows. So let's do some examples. Like he had the word king. Let's look if you can find this one. We have this word. Maybe you recognize it. Anybody?
Chaim.
Very good. Chaim. That's how you pronounce it.
Leven, toch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leven. Dit is a petach, like that. Then you have the yud, you have the chereyud, yud, and you have the mem. So when you put the inseparable preposition before it, you get l'chaim. Oh, like that. So that means to life. And it's a toast. And that's interesting. The Jewish community, when they celebrate, they raise the glass and they say l'chaim. So
To life.
To life. But in Amsterdam, where there is a strong Jewish community, the local people, they heard the sound l'chaim, but that's why they say dar ga je. It's a toast, dar ga je. And it's derived from the pronunciation of to life, l'chaim, dar ga je, to life. Okay. Some other examples. These are from the exercise book, but it's okay to do them. So we have here this word. Maybe you can see it. Marcel needs to be silent because he's too quick. Oh, he's not there. He's not watching. Who knows this word?
Is.
Marcel?
Ik zeg niks.
Ik zeg is.
Ish, yeah. Ish. I just write it down to how you pronounce it. Ish. So when you do the lamed, with the shiva, you get le ish. Which means to a man. Another one.
Ik ben alleen de Jood vergeten, Ronald.
Wat ben ik vergeten? Wat ben ik vergeten?
De Jood.
Oh, help.
Hij is ook erg klein, hè?
Kijk, daar staat hij. There he is, the youth. I forgot the youth. So let's do another one. This one is also. What do you get? Eretz and be becomes some space here. Be. Oh. in the land. Be'eretz. So when you pronounce it, you can hear the sound and the S sound. And you have, of course, the E sound. That's the long. But you can, in this word, be'eretz, you have two E sounds, the very short be'eretz. And that's why you sometimes swallow it in, bretz, like Shmuel. It's like Shmuel is how you pronounce it, but when you speak it quickly, you get Shmuel or Shlomo, the same, what he did in the last sentence exercise. Let's do another one. Oh.
Shlomo.
Yeah. Shlomo. This is a very short E, so they almost say Shlomo. You should swallow it in almost. And you do the kaf. Then you get. What would you get here? Would you get ke Shlomo or something else? Well, we don't get ke Shlomo, but the shwa changes into a chirek. It will be explained in the next video, but oh, that's not a nice lamed, but okay. So you get ki Shlomo. And that means like Solomon. So what you see is that the shwa over here changes in the chirek over there because you don't have these two shwas in the inseparable prepositions. This is exercise number 3-8 or something on the C. You put these together, and sometimes you get a change, or the first one takes over the with the kaf, it becomes a chirek, so an I sound, ki Shlomo, like Solomon. Safe. Okay. Now we go to the last video, and then it's almost 10 o'clock, guys. And then 8 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Yeah. Rule of shwa. Oh. Yippee, there he is.
Rule of shva. This is a good thing to talk about after we talked about inseparable prepositions, because when you attach those inseparable prepositions to their objects, their nouns or noun type words, you often end up having to use this rule. Now, if you remember, when we talked about the differences or how to distinguish vocal from silent shva, we dealt with a case where we had two shvas two vocal shavas in the middle of a word. Remember, I think that was rule 3. And we said that when this happens, the first one goes silent. It effectively closes the syllable on this side. And this one is vocal. First is silent, second is vocal. Then we noted that there was an exception if this happened at the end of a word. So at the end of a word, if you have two vocal shavas, it's a little different. The first one is silent, as we would expect. The second one, however, is also silent. Now, the rules of shava, there's 2 of them, really deal with what happens when you have two vocal shavas at the beginning of a word. And that's not permitted either. You can't have that any more than you can have these, two vocal shavas at the middle or in the end. And so, let's look at the 2 rules. Rule 1 says this: if you have two vocal shavas, if you end up in a case where you want to have two vocal shavas together at the beginning of a word, that's not permitted. And what happens is the first shava becomes a hidik, and the second shava becomes silent. Now let's look at an example. Let's look at the name for Samuel. We looked at this before. Shmuel. Shmuel. Samuel. Now we know this is vocal because it's at the beginning of a word, so therefore it's at the beginning of a syllable. And according to our base rule, our rule number 1 on distinguishing shavas, silent and vocal, we know that a shava at the beginning of a syllable is vocal. So we have one vocal shava. If we add an inseparable preposition to this, as we saw in the previous module, all you do is you take it, so let's do le for instance, and it comes with its own little shava. So now we have two vocal shavas. We have one here, one here. What do? It's not permitted. So we follow this rule number 1, which says the first shava becomes a hidik, second shava goes silent. So I wonder what's the best thing to do here. Should we rewrite it? Let us erase it. And I'll change colors. Let's see, erase. So this guy becomes a hidik. There's our hidik. Make it a little bigger. And this one, it was vocal. Remember, I just went through a whole explanation on that. But now it becomes silent. Because this is now the end. This is not your syllable. Division is now here. Lish muel. So this is closing this syllable. So, two shavas together. First one is hidik, second goes silent. That's rule number 1. Let's look at rule number 2. Rule 2 deals with the case where you have a shava and a composite shava of some sort. One of these chataf patach, compound or composite shavas. This is a chataf sagol. So if you have these two together, what happens? Well, what happens is that the shava changes just like we had before, but it changes, instead of a hidik, it changes to the short vowel corresponding to the composite vowel in question. So this is a chataf sagol, so the shava becomes a sagol, and the chataf sagol just stays. No difference there. Let's look at another case. So if you have a chataf patach and a shava, you can guess what's going to happen here. The shava is going to change, but instead of going to a hidik, it's going to go to a patach, which is the short vowel corresponding to this compound shava. And this is going to stay the same. Likewise, compound kametz chatuf and a shava is going to go to, this is going to stay the same, and this is going to go to, is that a kametz or kametz hatuf? It's a kametz hatuf, the short O. Okay. We could look at an example of this. How about, get all my dots in here. Edom, This means Edom, as in the place name, Edom, the people, group. So if we add a L to that, L'Adam, what's going to happen? Let's change our color here and get our eraser out. This is going to erase, or it's going to change, and it's going to be not a Hidik, but a Sagol. So L'Adam becomes Le'adam. Let us do another one. Adama. Now we have a Chataf Patach. Adama, which means earth or soil. If we add, let's do a L again. If we do a L on there, again we're going to get what we expect here. Pretty straightforward, really. This is going to change. We're going to lose that, and we're going to get not a Hidik. If this was a regular Shava, simple Shava, we get a Hidik, but we're going to get a Patach, which is the vowel, the short vowel that corresponds to the composite vowel we have here, and this is not going to change. So it's going to be La Adama. And let's do one last one. This here, I'll put it down here. We have a Chataf Kametz. Aniya, this means boat, and it shows up in Jonah. In fact, in Jonah, it's got a B in front of it, Jonah 1:5. Jonah goes down into the boat, into the bottom of the boat, and so we would attach that, but we can't do that, not permitted, to have a Shava and a compound Shava at the beginning of a word, and so we have to erase it, and we're going to put not a Hidik, not a Sagol, not a Kametz, or a Patach, but we're going to put this thing, and again, it's not a Kametz, it's a Kametz Hatuf, because that is the vowel that corresponds to this. This is the shortened form of the short O, not the long A. So, Ba Aniya, in the boat. So that's how the rule of Shava works. We can't have two Shavas together, whether they're simple or a combination of simple and compound, and so the first one will change, and it'll change to something that corresponds to the second one, really. In this case, it's going to change to Segol or Patach or Kametz. Here, it changes to a Hidik, which may lend some credence to the idea that the Shava is kind of an I-type vowel. If you compare this behavior to this, I'm not sure if that works, but in my chart I had put the Shava in the I column, if you remember. In any case, those are the two rules for how you deal with Shavas at the beginning of a word.
Unmute. Okay, I have found the verse Jonah. Let's look at that. Jonah 1:5. How do we get it more in my view? Like this. You can see in the ship, it's over here. Ba'oniya. It says ba here. Ba. Yeah, I don't know what it is. This should be an O sound, Ba'oniya, because it's well, maybe we can find that out. Not a good example. Sorry. I don't know. Let's go to the whiteboard last time because it's almost time and your capacity to learn. So what I did here, this should be gone. It should be Kishlomo. I need Kishlomo because this one becomes silent. I forgot that. So this one is silent. Kishlomo, like Solomon. So let's review the examples he gave. Here's one or two of them. Edom, not so big, Ronald. Come on. Nice and gently. Oh, I can correct that. Oh, we did the Adama. Let's do the Edom. This is Edom. Edom, so not Edom, but Edom. Edom, because it's a short E. Plus the le sound becomes not le, these two changes into le Edom. So what you see is in this rule, you see the short schwa becomes a segol. So the schwa becomes a segol because you can't have two schwas next to each other. You can't have two le, that's not good. So it becomes le Edom. Kamet Chataf. Ba'unir. No, I got it. Still don't get it. Okay. I hope this helps. We have now had 2 lessons about the schwa. It's a very short, how do you say that? Vocal, silent, and a very short vowel, but important to know the differences between the basic rule. The vocal schwa is at the beginning of a syllable. At the end of a syllable, it's a syllable marker. When you see a schwa, one single schwa somewhere in the middle, you can almost assure that it's the end of that syllable. And that's the basic rule. And then when you have the compound schwas, it makes the vowel very short. And when you have 2 schwas at the beginning of a word, the first schwa becomes a chirek. And if it's with the compound schwa, it takes over the short version of the vowel that is in that compound schwa. Sounds all very complicated, but please do the exercises. And like Noortje says, by doing the exercises, you learn, really start to understand it, because this is still not practical because you're only listening and you're watching a screen. But when you start writing out the exercise, and I know it takes time, but we will get there. You know, we will finish. We will do that. So, does everybody has a copy of the book, the additional exercise book? Do you know what I mean?
The red one, you mean?
Yep, the red one. From David Clemens.
Yep.
I could make one copy of this page. Yeah, if you don't have the book, I will make a copy and put it in the same chapter as the lesson. This is chapter 3. So I will make a copy of these and then we put them in, okay? And again, if you are watching or reviewing the recording, and from next week on, if there are enough volunteers, I would like to start at 7:30 with basic grammar, just to freshen up our understanding of grammar. It will be mostly Dutch grammar, of course, because that's my specialty a little bit. I do it from a study from the LOE. I have a grammar study, so it will be very basic, but we get in contact again with what all these terms means. And I've made an Excel sheet where you know how I am. I make this Excel sheet where all these terms are explained in Hebrew and in Latin and in English. So when you see an English word preposition, it means voorzetsel, and it comes from preposition.
Hebben wij dan ook zo'n boek
Oké.
nodig?
Heb je wat nodig?
Hebben wij ook zo'n boek nodig van LOE of iets? Of?
Nee. Dit is heel simpel. Ik ga niet...
Ronald, misschien
Ja?
heb je het al gezegd, heb ik niet goed geluisterd, omdat ik aan het kijken was hoe ik mezelf moest unmuten. Er zaten foto's voor, weet ik veel. Maar gaat het om Nederlandse grammatica?
Ja, Nederlandse grammatica. Dutch grammar.
Oké, nou dat dacht ik dus al. Dus nee, dat
Ja.
klopt. Oké.
So that will be in Dutch. From
Ja.
7:30 till 10 to 8. 10 minutes to 8 will be in Dutch. We do Dutch grammar.
Oké.
Ja?
Duidelijk. Ja.
Oké. Well. Oh ja, voor degenen die het nog niet gezien hebben. Wie heeft al het intro gezien van het filmpje? Hebben ze het allemaal gezien? Jij ook, Ankie?
Wel filmpje.
Nee dus.
Nee dus. Where are we? There are we. Okay, let's do it again. Oh, dan ben ik die kwijt. Deze, heb je deze gezien?
Oh, over de mystiek.
Oké.
Hello everyone, welcome to this second annual conference with Dr. Rowe in the Netherlands, and a little bit different than we used to. Last year was in person, so now we have an online meeting.
Leuk hè?
Ja, heel erg leuk.
Ja.
Oké.
Soms zit ik wel, ik zat van de week, ik zat naar die opnames te kijken en er begon iemand te zwaaien, dus ik zwaaide terug. En toen was het erop.
Oké.
Je weet op een gegeven moment niet meer wat is, hè? Als je zoveel Zoom-meetings doet, dan...
Oh man, elke dag wel één. Dus als er vrijwilligers zijn om na te kijken of de ondertiteling correct is qua taal en zo, dan meld je maar aan. Misschien kunnen we wat doen. Oké? Alright. Ik zegen jullie. En ik zie jullie, sommige mensen
Next time.
zie ik donderdag weer online.
Ja.
Ja.
Tot donderdag.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Donderdag bij ons, hè Marcel?
Klopt.
Ik ben er ook.
Hey, gezellig.
Oké, gezellig. See you guys, love you.
Doei. Doei.